Okay, so this is my review of the season 10 premiere of The Walking Dead, Lines We Cross. I can't believe we've hit 10 seasons of this show. It's becoming like the new Simpsons where it will never end, but I dig it. This episode is written by the current showrunner Angela Kang and directed by the notorious Greg Nicotero. So to this episode we get a very Austin Powers-esque type opening where we're in space and there's a Russian satellite just floating in the air. So it's like, okay, this is something unique, interesting. We'll see where this goes. And then in big letters it says, Training Day. So one of the things The Walking Dead has notoriously not been great at is just having random episodes go with a certain stylistic choice, and it always comes out of the blue and it never hits as hard as it should. And for some reason in this episode, they decided to have these opening titles on different parts, but a lot of them were pretty lame. They're to the point and on the nose. I don't think they were actually that necessary at all. But this show is trying to refresh anything they can here. So we see it opens with Training Day, and our gang is on this beach, and they're training. The best part about this sequence is with all this cool training they're doing, where they got the armor. I like how they would do a move where two people would have armor, they'd split apart, and then someone like Judas would come in, kill the zombie. That was sick. But you realize all these cool things they're practicing, they don't use any of it when the actual zombies attack later in the episode. It's just pure chaos, which I just think is hysterical. And I still think Michonne here gets the best shots. I never get sick of seeing her slice some zombie heads. It just always works the best with that sword. But even this sequence just felt like it was moving at a snail's pace. It just was a little too long. It's like, okay, we get it. They're training. Let's go. Next up, let's move the wheels now. And what was with this almost deleted scene-esque moment where we see Luke is with this girl, Jules, and they're cutting fish, and it's just cringeworthy flirting that they even reference that they're flirting. And again, on-the-nose writing, which is disappointing because Angela Kang's usually sharp with the writing, but just the strong woman line was so forced in. Again, my biggest pet peeve with shows is when they write topical things that they want to get across, but they're telling you and not showing you, which is just a rule with writing. Just show us it. You don't need to make it so simplified and unrealistic and on the nose. No one talks like that. That's just something you'd see someone tweet, but in person, come on. Anyone could write that. I do appreciate the time jump here again, though. I like that it's past those horrific events of when the heads are on the spike from Alpha. So it's refreshing again now. This show does best when it refreshes time, and I like seeing that Rick Jr. is older now. And again, little Judith, just great little actress there. She's so good and adorable with the kid and her just hanging out. And they see now on the beach, they find a mask of a whisperer. And this worked well for me because them finding this mask kind of set up in a good way for a premiere of where they left off, that this has been haunting them now in the time that's passed, and that they are all still human and deathly afraid of Alpha's gang and what they did to their people. So then we get this title, Skin, appear on the screen, and we are with Aaron and Michonne on horseback, and in true Walking Dead fashion, they still are hung up on these monologues and theories these people have about life that they just get into that we've heard over and over. This time it comes out of Aaron's mouth, and he's talking about, are we the good guys, are we the villains? This has been so overdone in this show, unnecessary, and now they're really going full on getting Aaron to be the replacement for Rick. He's literally spitting image of comic Rick at this point, but I am not sure if the actor of Aaron can pull that off. Something about it is just not working. Him playing the rugged part and him saying he's stronger, I'm just not buying it. And what hurts about it too is if you're going to take a role like that and be a big part of the show now, you got to earn us more of caring about him in his past. Like, we barely knew Eric, who he mentions in this episode in The Lost, so there's not really a weight there yet for us to care about Aaron. And if they really want us to get to care about Aaron, you got to spice it up a bit with him. It's just, now it just feels really forced in there. Because again, we're losing a great character like Michonne after this season. So that terrifies me. She is such a solid rock here, and we've already lost a bunch of main cast members. So I don't think Aaron is the answer as a lead. But maybe he'll change my opinion. I mean, this is his big stepping up season here, it seems like. So we'll see how he does. And it's, again, a little disappointing writing for Angela Kang because previous episodes she's written of The Walking Dead have been great, but her writing lines like Aaron saying, "I'm tired of being nice." Again, it's a lot of telling and not just showing us. It's just being spoon-fed the ideas here they're trying to convey. But you see now the concern of the boarders here happens on this bridge, and they don't want to cross it. And Michonne calls out Aaron like, "This is super risky what you just did." I know that I've read all the comics. I know that the border story is really important with Alpha, and I get it, but I'm just worried in the show sense of things that we were just beat down such a long time with the saviors kind of just suppressing everybody, all the good guys, and them being afraid of them, that I hope they don't drag this on too much. It seems like they're not, thank God. I feel like just the way the episode ended, that they're going to move things along quickly, and that we got to get them fighting back fast, because we can't have happen what happened with the Saviors, where almost a full season, Rick was just a prisoner, basically, and everyone was on their toes and afraid. So I think that they're going to move it quick. It just scares me a bit when they talk like that they're deathly afraid and they can't go over these borders. But I think they'll move it along, or that could be a huge trap. And there's some repetitive stuff here that will make people start feeling bored in this episode. Like when they find this campsite in the woods and there's skin. And this confirms there's been someone over the border, they say, from the Whispers. But we already knew this from the skin on the beach. This is just giving us something we already know. And then we see Aaron and Michonne on the beach. And then just like this just crazy rhetoric where Aaron's talking about fear can keep us safe, though. I learned that on the bridge. And Michonne's like, truth is, we're the good guys still. It really is at this point like the show is just picking used lines out of a hat here that have been done before. And they're like, all right, we'll go with this one. I like this little moment, though, where Judith's telling Rick Jr. about this brave man, a.k.a. Rick, who was a savior on the bridge, and obviously how they're easing Rick Jr. into the truth about his father. But I, again, just worry so much about losing Michonne, because you see how she's such a good mom. She's hugging them. How are they going to transition her out of this, away from her kids? I really wonder how. I mean, the only thing I think of is death, but we'll see. So what I did appreciate, though, was at the end of that scene, we get this boom in the air, and it's the satellite. They did a pretty cool thing where that happened multiple times in the episode. So it kind of, everything's not totally in sync and out of sync at the same, and it's all kind of out of sync at the same time, but it all ends on the satellite landing on the beach, which I thought worked well. So then we get this title here that says Bird Wisdom, and we see this radio system they got going, and this time Aaron is radioing to Gabe and Alexandra, where we have Eugene, Rosita, Sadiq, and this baby. And I did like the humor here with Eugene, that he was methodically taking care of this baby. It worked. It was funny. I like seeing Rosita doing a punching bag, because they're setting her up more to kick some butt now and not be useless. And they're adding weight to Sadiq's character, which I appreciate, where he has this PTSD from being at the site of Alpha just slaughtering all these people. And it's so good they did that, because it's so realistic. That's exactly what would be happening. That's such a terrifying thing he went through. So he's also going to suffer from survivor's guilt, clearly. And it makes his character more interesting, but also makes him a risk to his people, because if he has that much PTSD, I mean, it can make him act out in weird ways. You're already seeing he can't even sometimes hear his baby cry or focus on a conversation. And we see that with Dante, who's straight from the comics. This guy looks just like the comic character. In his first scene, he does really good, too. Dante's a very witty character, super sarcastic in the comics, and he plays it well here, the actor. So that was exciting to see. It was a good casting so far. And the show definitely is desperate for some good comic relief here, and Dante could definitely bring that, because Eugene's just has been kind of around for a while, so it's good, but it's still not refreshing, where I feel like they brought Luke in for that, and it really is not hitting with him, in my opinion. So we see Lydia here, who is learning how to read, which is, I guess, sort of interesting, but it's something that they're trying to still have some education there, and you forget that some of these people don't know how to read, like Lydia, and I like them having her kind of paired with Negan in a sense, because they're two outcasts here, and look, Negan's storyline in the comics still is really good at where they're at, so I hope they kind of stick true to the comics with him, and I'm happy to see him kind of in a newer element where he's actually allowed out, but he's still got to be babysit, which is kind of funny. But he's doing work there. He's like the trash man. He's doing the gardens, Custodial arts here for Negan. And Negan trying to fit in now with people and have trust again is going to be very interesting. So I think we might get some of the best scenes this season with Negan. And he's giving Lydia advice too. He's like, oh, if it means people aren't alert, that means watch your back. A nice touch too with Lydia practicing with the stick, Kind of a homage to Henry there. I like that. But you see Negan still has to go to jail after he does his work, and Gabe visits him, and you get some of the best humor scenes because Jeffrey Dean Morgan works great off of Gabe, and Gabe's just a good listener at that. The actor of Gabe does a great job there and just lets Jeffrey Dean Morgan do his thing, and they know that, so they're playing that card to have those two together a lot where Negan can shine, and that's where we get that reference to bird wisdom because he's actually giving that to Gabe here. And he's suggesting to Gabe here to lie to the people so it doesn't cause a panic, make them feel secure, even if it's just for show. And he's like, if that's what keeps us alive at the end of the day, what is the harm? But he's telling this to a priest here. Gabe struggles with lying clearly. And, of course, Gabe, being frustrating as ever, literally in the next scene goes outside and starts the wheels on panic and doesn't listen to a word Negan says and tells people to double up security, tighten up the walls. And man, Gabe's expiration date has been way overdue. I mean, if there's someone to axe off the show, please, Lord, because he is just frustrating because you think he's going to have growth as a character and then he always takes 2 steps back. I'm just so over Gabe at this point. So then we get this title with Sea Dogs. And what's interesting here is Kelly is losing her hearing slowly and Connie's comforting her about it. And I really like this scene, and I love Connie. I just think she's so likable. I like the line where she's like, it's not a disability, it's a superpower. It really works in that moment, especially to comfort Kelly and make something that most people would be so upset about where Kelly's going to use it for a good thing. And especially in a zombie apocalypse, hey, being able to communicate with sign language is a superpower, especially because you won't have these zombies hearing you. So I really like that positivity of that scene. It works. Hey, and Connie's got a little crush on Daryl here. And does this mean we're finally going to give Daryl some action? This is very exciting, but I won't get my hopes up because they've always teased that and never come through with it. Almost like they're messing with the fans at this point. And I like the nice touch here that in Daryl's back pocket, he has a sign language book. So we know why he's learning it, to impress Connie clearly. And then Carol comes off a boat. So there she is. She's coming from sea. She's been living out there. Okay, a little weird story turn there, but I'll take it. It's interesting. And it makes sense. Carol will want to get away from everything after what happened to her son, Henry. And she's got a nice awkward moment with Ezekiel there, her ex, when she comes off the boat. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out a bit. So when Daryl and Carol are together, it always gives the best scenes. And I always say a lot of these original cast members, if it's just them in a scene, it usually works. So the more we get of that, the better. I mean, I think the show, when it focuses in on a smaller group somehow, it's always the best Walking Dead you're going to get at this point. When it's too spread out, with too many faces, it can collapse. So I like that they were giving Daryl and Carol a lot of screen time together in this episode. But you see they're talking about how they're not getting letters from Maggie, which is interesting. And he hints to Carol, like, were you looking for her, meaning Alpha? And Daryl's clearly concerned about her because he knows there's got to be a rage in there still. And he misses her. And this was good. This worked where they were kind of where they go on his bike through the woods. They're bonding here. This is one of the best male-female friendships, just purely a friendship, as even though many fans want more than that, but I think it works better just as a friendship. It's needed in shows, and this is one of the best representations of that. That doesn't always have to be two people banging each other all the time. They could just be friends of the opposite sex. And their chemistry just as friends is off the charts. But then we get this title of New Mexico, and we get this horrendous CGI deer. I feel like it's so bad at this point they're embracing it because of how much crap they got for the CGI deer in the episode with Rick and Michonne when they were at like a carnival thing. I don't know what it is with the CGI in this show. I mean, this is the biggest show AMC's got at this point. I don't understand why they don't just invest enough money to have better graphics here, but it is actually hysterical how bad this deer looked, and I really do think they know that and are just playing it off now. But you see here, Daryl doesn't want Carol to shoot this deer that's straight from The Sims, and it's, again, respecting these borders, and Carol doesn't like that. She doesn't like how uptight everyone is about this, and it seems like the group needs some of that Carol fire here. And out of, like, the lines I've been complaining about where The Walking Dead always goes into these philosophy talks with characters that we've seen 100 times, I do think the Carol-Daryl one worked because who it was talking about it and how they've earned that from being together on the show so long, and they're like, is there anyone else out there like us? Do you ever wonder if this is all there is? I thought it worked. It just was a perfect moment for that. And how they're just talking about it's always a loop where everyone's just fighting each other eventually at some point, and who will survive, and just talking about how will we ever get back to just a peaceful world again, basically. And a little interesting line here where Daryl's like, I get what Maggie is doing with Georgie, the woman in the suit. So they dropped 2 Maggie lines here. I can bet you 100% we will be seeing Maggie back on this show sooner rather than later. She'll definitely be back as a main role because Lauren Cohen left. She got cast in the show Winston Cavalier. The show bombed. It got canceled after one season. I haven't seen Lauren Cohen get cast in anything else since, so I'm sure she's got time for Walking Dead and would consider that now, because I think when she left, she thought she was going to go into like a big job spree, but really right now, for her, it's not really been the case, so I don't see why not. So then we get the title of the episode, Appear on the Screen, Lines We Cross, and I just think this whole fire that happens in the woods from the satellite crashing, you know, this is Walking Dead at this point. You're going to have these like sequences you can't help but giggle a little bit at, especially because they had these canisters ready to go with hoses. And I guess they do some really complicated fire drills because they all knew exactly how to handle that. I mean, how many fires have they had in those woods that they had to put out? Like, they were all complete pros there. And then you see now, though, this starts at night, but then it kind of turns into day, and then the zombies appear in the woods. I don't know why it was necessary then to have the title Embers appear. It's just silly and stupid at that point. But I love Daryl with that axe. It's like just slaying zombies here. And then I appreciated, I mean, him throwing the axe at the tree could also be a little giggle worthy, but it was cool. And having this fire tree kill these zombies. I mean, I appreciate when the show's trying to just constantly create new ways to kill zombies. And they're really good at that and switching that up a lot. If they could have that kind of creativity with the little monologues about life and philosophy that they do with switching up the zombie kills so well, that would be perfect. I also loved here Carol's slitting of the throat of that zombie and letting the gore pull out. You know, that was Greg Nicotero at his finest. That looked awesome. But again, just if you really take a second and think about what's going on, something I just cracked up thinking about was how is it that Eugene is the only person here who cares that this is a giant satellite from Russia that's just sitting there. No one else gave a crap. And Michonne's even like, yeah, let's get out of here. Like, hurry up. Come on. Like, guys, like, when is the last time we saw something of this technology? Or ever in your life? Even now, you'd be like, what? Like, there's a satellite like that. They're like, who cares? I just thought that was hysterical. He's the only one to think of, like, even just peeking at what's going on there. And now we close out this episode with Daryl and Carol on this cliff where Daryl had talked to Alpha before Daryl witnessed the true horror and what Alpha did. And Daryl tells Carol here, I need you to stay. Think about it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to punch holes in all those boats. Good writing there. It really just summed up the Daryl we know and love and how much he cares about Carol and how much he knows they need Carol. And really how he's hinting at Carol that she shouldn't spend too much time just out at sea and come to terms and face kind of what's happened to Henry. Then we see Alpha pops up from the woods, creepy as ever. I do wonder, though, the way it just kind of was presented and the odds of it. Maybe Carol was just seeing this and like imagining seeing Alpha there. It might just be a little red herring that they leave as a big cliffhanger. Or it really was Alpha there. Maybe it was. I can't totally say. I'm interested to see what you guys think. But hopefully, again, it just shows they are aware they got to keep moving this border thing. They don't want to get stuck there like Walking Dead likes to get stuck in traps. Just to keep going and let's get this Whisper War going. So overall, you know, Walking Dead to me is stronger with their finales and premieres, and it's not, I mean, you can even think about last season, which was definitely a step up in show quality, which has been in a while, but even last season's premiere was pretty bad, and the first couple episodes were pretty bad, so Walking Dead's still not really been able to figure out how to make a super exciting beginning in a long time, so I kind of had lower expectations for this one, but I had high ones too because I know Angela Kang was writing it, and she's done really well with that, and this was probably her weakest outing for sure for me. Greg Nicotero was just doing what he always does, which is do great action sequences, great gore, and, you know, I feel like he is against the script trying to keep the best pace he can and keep things as interesting visually as possible. Having said that, though, I think there's still head scratchers in this episode, still traps that Walking Dead likes to fall into, and overall, it just still was not super interesting and pretty boring. So I'm going to give this one a 7.6. I think that's fair, but I'm sure it will get better. They're setting it up in parts well, so I'm just worried about certain leads and where their story's going to go, and us investing in a guy like Aaron who's really not that interesting, and guys like Luke who haven't really done anything and have been boring, where there's bright spots like Connie and, again, Daryl and Carol, keep giving them screen time. It's always works. So, and yeah, and you can't go wrong with Alpha, so we'll see what happens. Let me know what you thought of this episode down below. I love to hear your thoughts. Let me know if you loved it, hated it, in the middle like me. And please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss one of my reviews of The Walking Dead. I do a bunch of other shows as well, movies and celebrity interviews with the stars themselves, so you don't want to miss one of those. And please follow me at SteveVarley1 on Twitter and Instagram for more of me, and I'll see you next time.